right. Hello, hello. Welcome everyone to an exciting dev stream and Q&A. I am Andrew and I'm joined here by Kim, one of our awesome team members. How is our volume for you all out there in Twitch land? Are you able to hear me and Kim okay? Loud and clear. Okay, awesome. Yes, I finally dispatched with my COVID locks. I ended up. Kim, give us an audio check real quick. No Kim audio? Negative. All right, let me switch to an AFK screen real quick and. All right, Kim, can I get something from you real quick? A little bit? No? Okay. Nope, not yet. Oh, I do. Oh my. All right. Let's see. All right, hopefully that fixes the video, but I still have to worry about Kim's audio here. I wonder why that's not coming through. Say something for me real quick, Kim. It seems to be like a little bit delayed. I need to think about this because the Discord audio, yeah, it's like popping. All right, let me try. Here's what I'm going to try here. I'm going to try one more thing. Well, I'll try as many things as it takes to get this working because we were going to have a stream today, but let's see. All right. How did I have this set up before with the Discord stuff? I'm going to switch Discord audio and see if that gets me anywhere. All right, let me have another test here, Kim.
Test.
Oh, I think that definitely is coming through now.
God.
Let's see. Oh, we got it. Okay. Okay, we got it. Yay! All right, conquered. Stream's over, folks. Good job. Good job. Thank you. Um, good times. We did it. Congratulations. All right. Okay. Sorry about sorry about all of that. Not quite the smoothest start. That's okay. We'll clip it in the VOD, and no one will know how amateur this was. All right. Well, anyways, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Andrew. This is Kim, and we're just really happy to get a chance to chat with you all about cool Foundry stuff. Actually, let me kick off a little bit of background music, and we'll see if I can get that to balance. Now, this will be easy because or so I say, because it's just coming through the Foundry audio, same one as Kim. Okay, there we go. I'm going to play some of Ivan Dutch's music during today's stream. Ivan has an awesome music pack available for all Foundry users. So I'm just going to put on some of these loops.
Good, yeah.
Yeah, they are really good. So much audio too in Ivan Dutch's pack. Like the volume of it, like the quantity of audio is really something very spectacular. All right, so yeah, we're really excited to chat with you all today. It's been a little while since we did a Dev Q&A stream. We were doing these at the tail end of the V8 release cycle, and now we have a lot of very cool, fun, new stuff to show to all of you as we're working hard on our new software version for Foundry VTT version 9. So it's really exciting stuff, and thank you all for joining. I think the plan for today's stream is to chat a little bit with Kim, because Kim is a team member who joined a couple of months ago now and hasn't really gotten the chance to join on one of these dev streams yet, just because of vagaries of timing. And so I'm really excited that Kim was able to join today and chat with us while we sort of show some of the new features. And so we'll talk with Kim a bit, and then go into several of the really big new features that are in the upcoming milestone. And and then we will take some questions from chat, do some giveaway action around the break, etc. So I'll adjust the music a little bit then to suit the taste. I'm hearing it's a little quiet. I'll just give it a nudge. It's nice to be able to control all this right in the sidebar. Yeah, all right. Well, let's go ahead and jump into it. We got a lot of folks who've joined us today, and it's exciting for them to get a chance to meet you for the first time, Kim. So let's see. So you've been with the team now for 2 months. Is that about right? Gosh, has it? Let's see, because it was sort of the late April, maybe. No, early June. I don't even remember. We've done so much since you've joined. It feels like you've been with us forever now.
I think it was start of June.
Does it feel to you like it's been really short so far, or really long, or about proportionate?
Really short. I was surprised that it's been 2 months.
Yeah, it's funny. I have the opposite impression. I feel like you've settled in so well that it feels like you've been part of the team for a really long time, and it actually hasn't been yet.
Well, yeah, I'm glad.
I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, you were... Kim's volume is very low. Oh, really? All right. Well, I think I'll boost it on my end first, and before you do anything on yours.
All right.
The balancing issue is always a little bit of a trick, so hopefully that's a little bit better there.
Yes, I am just generally quite quiet as a person.
The levels that I'm seeing in the OBS mixer show it at about the same level as my voice, so if that's not the case, then it's a bit of a mystery. Sounds good now. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so give the audience a little bit of a just a brief introduction, and tell us about how you ended up participating in the Foundry community that I guess ultimately led to you joining the team.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I basically was doing software dev straight out of uni, and I picked up I picked up D&D probably when I was 13 or so with friends. I think we played 3rd edition, and before that I'd played games like Baldur's Gate and had some experience with 2nd edition. And then I just kind of didn't play tabletop RPGs for a long time until 5th edition came out. And I ended up getting on the 5th edition bandwagon pretty aggressively. And all this time I was doing software dev at the same time. I was using other VTTs for the longest time. I've basically, since the beginning of starting 5th edition, just because my girlfriend at the time was in a different country, so we would all play sort of online. So it was VTTs from the beginning, and I probably wouldn't go back. But yeah, just so when I heard about Foundry, I think it was around the time of the beta. I jumped in and I was poking around, and I'd had some bad experiences with sort of trying to develop for other VTTs in the past, and Foundry was it was seductive in how much it gave you. So I've I think my first module was the no token animations module. I think probably my most popular one is maybe token auras. So I did a few stuff, just a lot of stuff leading up to it. People might know Obsidian. That's a very heavyweight module, but that I spend a lot of time on still.
Yeah, I remember. I remember not like necessarily specific interactions, but I remember you as a fairly early member of the community starting work on these modules, and I was both like kind of impressed and also kind of intimidated at the time, because like everything was still so raw, and it was like modules like yours and other ones that some of the early devs were doing were really like pushing the design of what I was working on and highlighting a bunch of limitations. And it was like, oh gosh, these like devs that are, there's like the smart, capable devs are finding Foundry, and now like I can't necessarily keep up or keep in front of them. But so I remember being like a little bit intimidated by you at first, actually. I know that will like sound funny maybe, but
that does sound very funny.
Well, no, I mean, not just you, but like there were a couple devs like in the very early days that it was like I was feeling like a little bit defensive. Like I knew I wanted the software to be as open as it is, but like when the rubber met the road and it actually was people that were starting to make stuff that really like pushed the software or transformed it in ways that I didn't expect, it was tough to get over that like sort of initial defensiveness of like, oh well, I didn't mean for people to do that, like that one, and that's something that I've really had to learn to kind of let go of, is like, well, if it's this open, it's this open, and people are just going to kind of do things that you never intended or anticipated, and try not to let that like make me too salty or something.
Yeah, now I have to deal with that.
Yeah, now you have to deal with that. That's right.
But I think from the beginning, like even in the beta days, you just kept like showing how good the API could be and how beneficial it was to have your clear vision to lay this groundwork down. So it really allowed, like, because when you're writing these modules, you have it working and it works, and then when the change comes in, it's a question of, oh well, it was already working, why would you change that? But every time there was a new Foundry update that added these new APIs, I would look at what it was and I would see how it fit into what I was already doing.
Yeah.
And then it did actually make things better and easier and simpler, and that, I think that's a huge win for all devs.
Yeah. Well, anyways, you eventually, I guess, had the opportunity to join the team, and I was like so fortunate that you had the option of doing that and were interested in doing that, and so we were able to bring you on board, and it's been really great so far. You tell folks like about some of the stuff that you've been working on since joining.
So my time's been devoted to a lot of D&D 5e stuff, reviewing merge requests. I've been implementing some of the new features. There's a lot of stuff I've been involved with, also the 0.8 maintenance, so fixing a lot of bugs there. And I've dipped my toes, I suppose, into V9. Tried to help out as much as possible with my limited sort of knowledge so far.
Yeah, the new D&D release is it's like a big update to that system. I think really exciting. I know that like not everyone's a 5e player, and that's totally fine. But like a lot of the new armor class features that I'm showing on this stream right now, in terms of like different AC calculation modes for supporting all kinds of different AC computation, and then like adding active effects into that and making it all kind of work and be dynamic and come up with the correct answer. I think that's been like a pretty exciting improvement to the system that a lot of folks have been wanting for a long time. And the kind of very simple just
beta,
just write your armor class, just put your AC on your sheet, it's just a number, just put it on there. Like that answer kind of, we outgrew that answer a long time ago, but it just took time to actually get everything together to do it. But yeah, that's a really exciting enhancement, and I know that the community developers working on 5e have really appreciated having an extra set of hands and eyes on the official Foundry side to help work on that system as well.
They're incredible, some of the amount of work that they put in.
So I'll put you on the spot a little bit. Like what's a couple of things that have stood out to you since joining the team that you didn't expect or realize or anticipate as an outside developer?
Oh man. Yeah, that's kind of difficult because I feel like everything I know is now all Foundry. I'll try to imagine what I thought before.
Well, we can come back. We can come back to it. I knew it's a hard question. I knew I was putting you on the spot. I think like it's definitely a little bit different. Like once you sort of get on the back end side of like sort of needing to follow the process through of like the community suggestion all the way into like implementation of a new feature. And the server side code obviously is like a little bit of a new thing that we continue to work on, but
that's true.
Yeah,
I didn't have any insight into the server side stuff, and yeah, I don't know, just the whole way that everyone, how everyone in the team fits together. I didn't really have a good picture of how the team worked. And all the bits and pieces that you did every day, and probably just the huge scope of what goes into running Foundry. I don't know. I think before Foundry, it's reasonably complex, but I don't think I really appreciated the full scale of the complexity. I think before joining the team.
It is, yeah, it's a lot. And I mean, we're a very small team, so folks out, in the audience who might not know, there's just 6 of us. So we accomplish a whole lot, but the team itself is not really huge, and I like that. I think it means that we're all kind of sharing a lot of responsibility and all working together really closely, and we're all kind of in the trenches together trying to move things forward. And I think it's a good size, and it may not be the size of the team forever, but certainly for now it's like a size of the team that feels really good, to me, and giving us the ability to execute on everything that we're trying to accomplish. But yeah, anyways, we'll obviously have a chance to chat more about your work and your stuff throughout the stream today, and as a key part of it is community Q&A. So we're going to get some questions from the audience a little later on. We're not answering questions just yet, but we will do questions and answers later on. And so definitely it'll be a great chance for everyone to ask questions to Kim to get a little bit of a different perspective than the one that I might that I might provide. But the first thing that I kind of want to jump into as sort of the main topic of today's stream, and I'm going to adjust the tile sizes just a little bit, is the development of the new V9 release. And so I want to start by saying V9 and explain a little bit like what that means. So as some of you know, we've been evolving our versioning labeling as part of this release. So the previous versioning system that we were using was limited and, well, not necessarily limited, but the way we were using it was limited, and it wasn't necessarily satisfying all of the requirements that we had as a team for communicating the nature of our releases to you all as the community of users and the community of developers. So I think a couple of things that were really sort of holding us back a little bit, it was sticking with the 0.x.y sort of semantic appearance of versioning that wasn't necessarily semantic, in that we weren't using it in the way that semantic versioning was intended to be used. And I think we had a lot of hard internal conversations about like, well, should we change the way we're using the versioning system, or should we change to another versioning system that better suits the way that we're actually operating? And it was actually a tough conversation. There were a lot of merits on both sides, but ultimately we decided what made more sense was to have a versioning system that tracked more closely with the actual work that we're doing as a team and the way that we're making software releases available. So a couple of key things that I can, it's not really as complicated as it seems, but I know it's a big change. And so I think the complexity of it might seem overstated. At a simple level, we're going to talk about Foundry in terms of generations or sort of major releases. We're using the term generation internally, but we probably won't necessarily rely on that a lot. But anyways, we would think of the last generation, the one that's currently a stable release, the release that's currently labeled 0.8.9. We'll think of that as generation 8. It is the 8th major generation of the software. And this one that we're working on now is generation 9, and we'll just keep counting upwards from there. Furthermore, in addition to talking about generations of the software, this one being 9, we're changing from like a .x.y type pattern, which looks a little bit too much like semantic versioning and therefore is confusing, to just tracking our build of the software. So we might have, say, generation 9 build 211. So 9.211 will be the generation and build of the software that we're working on, or that we've released. Now, each release of the software, each build, will belong to a certain channel, just as they do now. So if I go back to my setup menu of the software over on the update, there are still these channels, but the channel names are slightly different, and there's 4 of them now. So there's stable, testing, development, and prototype. So what we're talking about today is what's called a prototype version. So prototype is like the cutting edge of the cutting edge, and in order to, the prototype is sort of the least safe place to be if you're going to use a Foundry version. So, bear in mind that there probably will be some bugs shown on the stream today. There probably will be some features that don't all work ideally. That's totally expected. This is really early on in the process. And so, the prototype is kind of the very first thing that we feel at all reasonable is, that we feel is at all reasonable to share with the community. So this is for the design of brand new features, allowing mostly the API developers in the community to check things out very early on and provide feedback. After that, we'll have a second phase that we'll call on development, so ongoing development of the API, of new features. Things aren't quite as explosive in this phase, but still very dangerous, still very much subject to change. After that, we'll release something that we call feature testing, which is really intended for widespread testing amongst the module developer and player population. And I emphasize widespread testing, not widespread usage. Really, you should still only be using this if you're wanting to tolerate some bugs and help us to test. But followed by a stable release, at which point we've tested, we've we've frozen, solidified the API changes, we've tested the new features, then we release a stable version of the generation. So that's kind of what's happening right now. And I'm sure you all have lots of questions on this. And so we'll take those questions, at various points during the broadcast. But suffice it to say, right now we're talking about Generation 9, the prototype, the first prototype release in that sequence. So informally, we'll sort of call this V9 Prototype 1. So it's the first prototype within the version 9 version or generation. Okay, so that's what we're talking about today. I want to go ahead and start going through a list of some of the many things that are changed in this release. So as you know, or perhaps as you don't yet know and will learn, the V9 software is focused on two major things. One is canvas improvements, which is further improvements to performance, to lighting rendering, to vision, things like this, as well as the addition of the card system. So card support for decks, hands, draws, stuff like that. So the card stuff is going to be coming in the second prototype, Prototype 2. We did the canvas stuff in the first prototype. So what we're going to be talking about today is Prototype 1 that has to do with canvas. So cards will be next time in Prototype 2. But we do have lots of very cool canvas changes to showcase today. So let me position my screen a little bit more optimally here. We have some... Oh, go ahead, Cam.
I think just having the canvas changes in the first prototype gives devs that are kind of using the canvas in their modules a lot, just time to work on it.
Yeah, in both cases, when we think about which major feature to do first, it's kind of trying to choose whichever one is likely to have more changes for downstream developers. In this case, I think hopefully people will be relieved to hear that I think neither feature is going to be very disruptive, not like perhaps the level of disruption that 0.8 caused with some of the document changes. But these features and this set of changes I think will be less disruptive, although they will certainly affect some modules that handle rendering to the canvas directly. So we wanted to do these first because we felt like the canvas changes would have a little bit more impact for community developers, and so getting those out before cards was the sort of sensible way to phase it.
Yep.
So I'm going to go ahead and start digging into some of the changes, and I'm trying to think, one of the things we need to do with our draft update notes, which aren't really available yet, but they will be. These are just draft. We're still working on editing them. I need to get them ordered in sort of an order of like biggest, like most important to lesser. I think these aren't yet really ordered in that way, so it might be a little bit scattered in terms of their order of importance. I'm going to talk about the breaking changes later, so I'm going to ignore that and come back to it later and have a little bit of a time to share with the community devs in the audience like what they might expect there. But I want to start with features. So I'm just going to go through the list and talk about each of them and showcase, if I can, what that would look like, so that everyone can see an example of what these new features does. So let's go ahead and jump in. And for those of you in chat, just to reiterate, hold your questions for now. I'm just going to go through and demo all this, and then after the break, we will take questions from chat. Okay, so first one in the list under architecture and infrastructure. Packages, so world systems modules, may now define compatibility based on an entire version of the software rather than specific release numbers. So what that means, or what that would look like, is let me pull up a example package manifest that I could show. So for example, suppose the D&D system This is its manifest that I've just opened in this editor. I might be, for example, as a developer, able to currently where you would articulate a specific version for compatibility, like 0.8.2. You can now, if you are comfortable with declaring compatibility this way, you can just put the generation of the software. So I could say like this version of the system is compatible with core version 8 or core version 9. And you can use the generation numbers directly. You don't have to worry about specific versions in that sequence. You can just declare that you're compatible with an entire generation of the software. That makes it a lot easier for developers to manage how they declare those compatibility flags in the manifest files. That will also work on the website as well. So it's just a simpler way to track compatibility. You can, of course, still track compatibility down to the individual build level. So say there was a patch that came out in a certain build, and prior to that build, your module just isn't going to work because it's broken without this bug fix. You can still say, like, my module requires 8.117 or whatever the build number is, and you can require a specific build or greater, but you don't have to. So that's what that change is all about. The workflow for bulk package updates has been improved for better handling of batch updates. This is more of like an internal performance and website efficiency change, so I'm not going to demo it. There's not really anything for me to show here. The version comparison logic has been updated to work with our new versioning system. So wherever you're using, say, is newer version, that's a helper function. That helper function will just continue to work as normal. Yes, so that one also, there's not really much to demo. The server administrator authentication has been moved to a new /auth endpoint rather than the /setup view. So this is when you authenticate as a server admin. That has a new route in our backend, express routing. It's not under /server or /setup anymore. This shouldn't have really affect anyone. It's just kind of, that's the internal URL route that you'll be sent to if you need to authenticate. So those are...
That was one of mine.
Oh yes, that was one of yours. Thank you, Kim.
Yeah.
So those are some of the a little bit more like dry architecture infrastructure changes. So I'll go ahead and get into the canvas stuff, which should be a little bit more exciting. Actually, a lot more exciting. So probably the flagship feature of V9 in terms of the canvas is a new vision computation algorithm. It is called a radial sweep, and it is a new way of computing the line of sight polygons or field of vision polygons that the software really relies on in order to render the appearance of light, the appearance of vision. It's really critical implementation of, it's a really critical piece of the software. And so let me just give a visual demo quickly of like what I mean when I talk about a polygon. So for this token, this Dragonborn cleric, we need to know what areas of the scene can this token perceive. So I can generate the new polygon with a little bit of debugging information, and you can see that the area that is shaded, this internal shape that is covered by this sort of shaded area, and the polygon that is formed by the points of these rays, this is what I mean by the polygon of what can this token see. It's really important to get this right and to have it be fast and accurate. So the requirements for computing the polygon, it's really a tough computational challenge, and it's one that is really essential to try and get it correct. Basically, when the token moves, and I'll clear this, as the token is moving like this, you want the polygon computation to be super fast and super accurate, because each frame of the token movement that's animating, this is a new polygon every time. And so it has to run really quickly, it has to be very performant, and it has to be accurate so that you have a nice, smooth experience as your token is moving around the map. And the new algorithm that we have is it's working really wonderfully well. It's super accurate, which is a really great enhancement over the previous Polygon. It gets pretty much the pixel perfect polygon shape using the nearby endpoints of the walls, and it does a really tremendous job. And hopefully those of you, I don't know how much it's coming through on Twitch, but hopefully you can see the smoothness with which the shadows are animating as the token moves around. There's no jumpiness, there's none of the sort of flicker that you might see sometimes in V8. That's all taken care of, that's all gone with the new algorithm. I'm going to actually give a little bit farther vision distance so that it is more noticeable. So it's very smooth, basically, and this is still just running at 60 FPS, but yeah, it's really smooth, and I think you're all gonna be really happy with this change. I know I am. It's sort of a night and day difference. It's really a great improvement on the current performance of the software. So really exciting, the Polygon changes, and I can show.
It's really awesome.
I can show the difference versus the prior Polygon. So this one, it's shaded a little bit differently. It uses far more rays in order to achieve the result. It also has more approximation involved. So if you note that, here at the outer edge of the polygon, you see it kind of cuts off a little chunk of this wall. I actually can probably show some worse cases of the old one. The old algorithm can still be supported. So one of the things that I'll talk about is it is configurable which algorithm you want to use for site computation. But in general, you don't really want to use the old algorithm anymore. It is not as good. It does not produce as good a result. And so the new one is kind of by default the one that will be used. I can show maybe, actually I have to refresh here because there's a little bug right now with the collapsing of the sidebar that I need to fix. But one of the things, for example, that was a bit of a problem area in the old algorithm was dealing with the accuracy of shapes that are very far away. So for example, suppose, these are just drawings that I have on the map, but suppose these drawings down here in this corner, these are like little buildings or some other obstacles that are very far away from the point of the observer. The old algorithm for this would really sort of struggle a bit. So you can see here what the prior algorithm would do. There was some approximation where this gap here between these nearby obstacles isn't quite pixel perfect. Down here, these far away ones, like it wouldn't correctly allow vision to penetrate past these two. It kind of would connect them incorrectly because of a lack of adequate precision. Down here, there's kind of a point like that went directly from this one to this one, when actually in reality there would be like a narrow passageway of vision that could kind of go between them. So the new Polygon in comparison gets that exactly right. So it gets the passage of sight between these two distant obstacles exactly right. Their regions are completely correct. It is really pixel perfect when you're thinking about like getting the correct answer. And the performance is good. It's I would say in most cases as fast or faster than the prior. For very large, very complex maps, it is a little bit slower. So it doesn't scale with complexity of the scene quite as well. But I'm talking about like 1,000 to 2,000 plus walls on your map, like really large, before it starts to not be as fast as the prior algorithm. It's still more accurate in both cases, but for a very large map. So here's one, for example, with 1,000 walls. And let me go ahead and load that up, and I'll get rid of the darkness so it's a little easier to see. This cavern map has, I'll toggle on the walls layer so you can see. This is about 1,000 walls on this cave map. It's pretty large map. If I put let's drop our cleric in here and give them some vision distance. So the new polygon logic on a map like this is still doing a really great job to eliminate unnecessary rays and to trace the the ideal shape. It really is like pretty much pixel perfect, and we can compare it to the old one, which for this map would be actually slightly faster, although it is more rays, but it does a lot of approximation to cut some corners. The resulting shape of the polygon is pretty much identical in both cases, although down here you see there is like a little bit of approximation where some fidelity is lost compared to this. So what I can show is down here at the edges, you can see there's a gap between this gray piece and what's highlighted, where this is actually a piece of the scene that, according to the correct sight rays, the token would be able to see, but the old vision polygon didn't get it right. It missed it. The new one, in fact, does get it right, and with fewer rays as well. Performance is pretty comparable between these two. So if I move around this map where it's quite large, I'm still getting I'm getting 60 frames a second. It's pretty smooth. There is like an occasional little hitch. It's not like as buttery smooth as like a much smaller map, but it is very smooth still, even on this pretty robust map. So I think the performance overall is one that, if there's ways to continue improving performance in the future, that'd be great. But the performance right now it's in a really good place, and I hope you all can notice that on the stream. But if you can't notice it on the stream, you'll certainly notice it once you get your hands on V9 and experience it in person.
Yeah, and the accuracy, in my opinion, is totally worth it.
Yeah, the accuracy gain is really, really great. I think it's something that I'll show one more difference, because this is kind of really the main flagship feature here. I'll show one more example of the difference. I think this map probably gets some differences between the two. If I maybe have like a little gap like this maybe. So there's the new one that is sort of pixel perfect compared to the old algorithm, which, as you can see, loses some fidelity. Like it misses this ray that you'd be able to see between these two obstacles. It sort of loses a little bit of the edge here where it approximates. Loses a little bit down here as well. So it's really a really important improvement. And the polygons here, I've been talking about them from the perspective of sight, for example, but they're also really important for lighting. So for example, canvas scene lights get so I can draw the polygon from the perspective of the light as well. This is how the area of effect for light sources is also determined. It's really important piece of the process here. So I'll do, say, radius L dot radius and density 60. Oops. All right, sorry, just a second. I'm trying to get a reference to the correct source here so that I can demo what I'm trying to show. E8. Oh, that's the, okay. I was like, what's going on here? That's the document source. There we go. So this is how we compute the polygons for what area of the scene is affected by a light as well. It uses the same algorithm. This time it's limited by the radius of the light, but the same algorithm is used to determine what portions of these obstacles would be encountered by this light source. So it's really a very important piece of the architecture that is used all over the place, so that when I drag the light source around the map and I get like a nice sort of real-time preview of like what's being affected by the light source, every sort of frame of this drag, it's computing this polygon once again and updating it to get the correct answer of what is affected by the light source. So anyways, hopefully that demonstrates the importance of having a good polygon algorithm here, and really happy with the results that we have to release with the next version of the software. All right. The next major feature in this update is what is called adaptive lighting, and it's really super beautiful. While the polygon is kind of the most important kind of technical and performance improvement, the adaptive lighting is really where the beauty of what we've done in this update is completely evident. The new light sources use a approach to the shaders that generate their areas of effect that we call adaptive lighting. And you can think of it as sort of a deferred lighting, and deferred meaning the renderer draws everything that's underneath the lighting layer first into a texture, and then we apply illumination to that texture using a deferred lighting pass, which allows the light to adapt to the color of what is underneath it. So you'll notice that, for example, in this scene with these flickering torches, if I drag one of the torches over towards the paladin, you'll see sort of the gleam of the armor as the light kind of comes onto it, and it's a really beautiful example of what this sort of deferred illumination can do. When, like, look at the top of the paladin's helmet that sort of starts to glow as the light comes onto it, and the gamma, the luminosity of the light, affects the token. So it's a really beautiful way to shade the scene that is underneath what is visible to you on screen. And so it's really super incredible. And the team, and I've worked hard on this, but I would be lying if I didn't give a lot of credit to the wonderful community member Secret Fire, who is an absolute guru with WebGL, whose guidance on making this happen has been invaluable, to be honest. And so I think he's with us in chat today. If so, please all share your thanks with Secret Fire for helping us to implement this improvement to the lighting system. It's really amazing. So there's lots of features that come along with this. So let me show, for example, the difference between the adaptive lighting, which is deferred like this, as well as the legacy lighting. The legacy lighting, as far as VTTs go, I thought it was okay. It's pretty good. I mean, I didn't think like our lighting sucked, but the legacy lighting has this kind of murkiness to it that it gets a little bit like, it's like there's sort of some smoke. It's not quite as clear. But yeah, so, it's really, it's not quite as crisp. It doesn't have the sort of beautiful overlay look that the new lighting has. When this token's under here, it gets kind of washed out a little bit, whereas over here it really brings out all of the colors of the token in a much more clear and much more natural way. And so you can see between the two the difference between the old light and the new light. And you can still use the old one, so it's still available. It's called Legacy Coloration. It's an advanced option. But the default is what's called adaptive luminance, which will be the default for all newly created light sources. So
yeah, I agree with some of the chat. It was good, and it still is good. It just was a case of we didn't know what we were missing.
Well, yeah, I think finding each opportunity to continue making it better is something that just was something that I really wanted to do, and I was really excited to have the opportunity to do that. Let's see here. So I want to showcase some of the different features of this. Color, obviously you could change the color before, but now the interaction of color is much more vibrant. And so you're all going to have a lot of fun playing with different colored lights. I promise you, you're going to have a lot of fun with it. You can make some really amazing looking scenes with coloration in your light sources. With adaptive lighting, it really looks incredible, and I think you're all going to really love it. Beyond color, the behavior of the intensity slider is now much improved. It uses gamma and reverse gamma to illuminate the adaptive texture that's underneath the light source. So as you vary the intensity, you get, I'll turn off the torch for a moment so you can just see just the pure light. The slider for color intensity, you can have like a very intense, very bright blue that, while being bright, still doesn't completely dominate or wash out what you had before. Like if you had an old light with the brightest intensity, it's a bit artificial. You kind of lose what would be a more natural, sort of look of illumination. You also can get like a very nuanced with just like a very low intensity. You get just a really nice, like subtle hue that can make your environment, like if you imagine this being like a patch of moonlight or something, you get just like a really nice effect that can vary up your scenes and give them a different sort of, life for storytelling.
Really beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. So that's the color intensity. There's a whole new tab. So as you're noticing, the UI layout of the light is now different. There's 3 tabs: basic, animation, and advanced. There's a number of settings on the advanced tab that are important to explain what they do. The first one is for coloration technique. So I already showed legacy versus adaptive. You can see how beautiful the difference is. There are some other coloration techniques that you can choose from that do some fairly niche or nuanced things. Internal halo gives a very bright internal additive glow. Maybe for smaller light sources like a candle where there's a very intense like central flame, this can actually look pretty neat. I'll switch this back to like a torch color. Like you can imagine if this were maybe just smaller, you can see how you might get something with this internal halo that kind of has like a nice sort of very intense central glow. It's just an option that you can play around with. Let's see. Another one is color burn. Produces a very cool effect for maybe some like ethereal astral plane type lights where you can color burn the contrast with other nearby colors to create kind of an otherworldly or ghostly light effect. It's very unique, and it does kind of interact, or it can interact rather, with other animation. So for example, if you do like a color burn ghostly light, you can create like a kind of weird spell, like otherworldly aura of just kind of weirdness. You'd have to play around with this a lot to, get the exact effect that you want. Like it's a little bit like guess and check in terms of like getting it to do what you want it to do. But, or like a swirling fog with color burn can, I don't know, just like really cool potential for like spell effects or something like that.
Yeah.
So the next one is internal color burn, which just applies a color burn right near the center of the light. It's sort of more like the bright radius versus the dim radius if you want like the effect on one but not the other. Low absorption is cool. So low and high absorption are both ways to affect how much of the light color is absorbed by the underlying substance. So with high absorption, a lot of the light is absorbed. So even with like high intensity, it sort of it doesn't have this sort of luminescent like luminance. It kind of gets absorbed into the materials. So it kind of can produce like a different looking effect than the difference between that and adaptive, where it has like the full glow of the light. With high absorption, that light gets absorbed into the underlying texture, and there isn't the glow of the light, it's just the coloration of the light comes to the fore. So it's really useful, and low absorption as well, it kind of is a middle ground between the full light of adaptive luminance and the kind of diminished sort of place of high absorption. So it's a little bit of a halfway point. And last is invert absorption, which is kind of a way to, I don't know, it creates sort of a unique effect that when combined with some other things can produce a pretty interesting look. I'm not sure exactly the best. I need to turn down the color intensity in order to kind of show a little bit better the inversion here. But this also can be used for a neat sort of otherworldly sort of spell effect or something where you can invert the coloration of underlying textures. Takes a lot of playing around with to kind of get used to, but it's fun to play with the new options, and they're under advanced options for a reason, because most of the time you're probably not going to want to really mess with them. But it's fun stuff that you can mess with if you want to create like a specific look. All right, next up is also under advanced options, luminosity. This is something that is going to get, I think, some of you pretty excited. So luminosity controls the brightness level of the light. Now I want to show something here. I'm going to turn these other lights off. And I'm going to put my token over on this side. So one thing that was noteworthy before is that token vision, like if you have bright vision and a bright light, the bright light is not quite as bright as the bright vision of the token. This is because we have this thing called a darkness penalty. The point of the darkness penalty is that as the darkness level within the scene gets to be more, so more darkness within the environment, the efficacy of lights becomes lesser. And this is a natural thing that happens, in the real world as well, in terms of your perception of a light source. But what we have here is that the sort of apparent illumination of the light diminishes a little bit as darkness gets more. And you can see this more if I change the luminosity. So what the luminosity slider actually does is it affects the brightness level of the light. So a maximum luminosity light is very bright. In fact, it kind of oversaturates, it overexposes the underlying scene, and it creates a light that's sort of even brighter than normal. So if you want like a really intense light, you can get that by cranking up the luminosity. Similarly, if you want a really subtle light that is, you can take luminosity down to like 0.1, and there is still a light there. It is still like adding some illumination. You can tell the difference between the light and the darkness, but it's not adding a lot really, and you can make your light sort of very dim. And if the light is more dim, then the way that it is penalized by darkness is also more. So you can see, it's subtle, but you can see within the area of effect that the light dims a little bit as darkness increases. And that's kind of a nice touch that interacts it with the darkness level of the scene. So the other thing that we changed is we adjusted the way that darkness sources work. So it used to be that light sources kind of had this hidden feature that if you turned their radius negative, you would get a darkness source. It was cool, and it is still cool. It's a cool feature, but it was a little counterintuitive because setting a negative number for the radius, most people wouldn't know to do that. And even if you knew to do it, it's a little bit like counterintuitive. It doesn't necessarily make the most sense that you would set a negative radius. So now that we have a luminosity slider, darkness is handled in a much more elegant way, where to produce a darkness source, you will simply turn luminosity to a negative number, And when luminosity becomes negative, it starts removing luminosity from the scene, and it becomes a source of darkness. So it's a cool trick that you can go from light to darkness by just sending the luminosity to negative. Let me make a note here real quick. Okay, sorry. So we have a darkness source. We set some negative luminosity. I can show some other cool things with darkness sources here. Second note of the stream. As I'm demoing these things, I notice some things that aren't quite working the way that we want them to, and so I just take some notes as we're talking about it, so that I can make sure to follow up afterwards. With some other things that I want to take action on. Okay, another very cool thing about darkness sources that you can do now, that is a new feature, is you can adjust the color of your darkness source. So suppose I want this like crimson blood red, very ominous darkness source. We can now integrate the behavior of coloration with the behavior of darkness sources. Now this will work better if you choose darker colors. Otherwise, it won't necessarily, like if you choose like a very bright red, it kind of looks, I mean, it looks interesting. It's like you've coated your entire scene in blood, but it is still, it's still going to behave as a darkness source for the perspective of illumination. And so it kind of produces a little bit of a counterintuitive result if you choose bright colors here. But if you choose a darker color for your darkness source, you can get like a nice, lots of options, blues, reds, oranges, whatever you want for your darkness source. You can adapt the color of it, which is pretty nice. If you just go back to the default color, it uses the sort of purplish, blackish purple default darkness color that works pretty well. The other thing that's new about darkness sources is, as you set a color, you can also set an animation. Now previously animations there were just two animations that you could use for darkness that were specifically and only for darkness. There was the black hole animation. Let me adjust the intensity here. There was also the roiling mass animation. I think it might be a little hard to see these on stream. So yeah, I apologize for that. I think we still have a little bit of calibration to do about the luminosity of the darkness source, because it's a little bit too dark right now. So that was one of the things I was noting. You can see the black hole animation out near the edges of the source, but like near the center, you can't really see it. So yeah, that's something we'll continue to calibrate. But yeah, the thing that I wanted to mention is that you can now use any of the animations with darkness. Now, it's not really coming through super well on the stream, and so I think probably this is more of like this one, I guess you can see, the Bewitching Wave, you can see pretty clearly. But yeah, you can use multiple animations with the darkness source now, which is a pretty neat change. And we'll continue working on, like if you want like a pulsing, like a pulsing darkness, you can have kind of all the different animations that you have for light sources, but you can have those with darkness sources also. All right, going back to a light source, got a couple more things to showcase here. Background saturation. Let me go back to not having the same amount of bright and dim. Background saturation is a very cool feature. So what background saturation does is it heightens or diminishes the saturation of colors that are underneath the light source. So let me move the token over here so you can see a good demo. As I increase the background saturation, the colors sort of deepen and intensify. And similarly, as I decrease the background saturation, colors will wash out and turn to grayscale on the far other side of the light source. So this is a light that completely removes color from its environment. Everything within its area of effect becomes completely grayscale at minimum saturation.
Perfect for your Eberron Noir campaign.
Yeah. Fun for certain spell effects. We're going to be working, as V9 continues, on some new vision features. And so I think I'm not going to promise anything, but or dates or anything, but I think those of you in chat can pretty clearly guess how a feature like removing saturation from a certain area would play into us enabling some certain vision features in the future. So next up is the contrast slider, which, like saturation, I can either add or remove contrast from the underlying environment. In some ways it behaves a little bit like saturation, but there are some differences in terms of the result. And it might be easier to see in some other different scenes as well. I'm not sure which is necessarily the best scene to showcase contrast, but yeah, adding or removing contrast to the environment is a cool thing that you can do. You can see in this scene where there's a little bit more color, you can see the difference between saturation of one and contrast of one. They both kind of intensify the background a little bit, but they do it in different ways, where this one plays more with the intensity of the colors, and this one plays more with the contrast between colors. Lastly, background shadows is something you can add that will increase the depth of dark colors. So you can make a light source that has like a really deep shadows contrasted with really sort of light lights. And so, like, for example, like higher luminosity, more but deepen the background shadows, and you can get kind of an interesting sort of almost like sepia, like high contrast, high brightness, low, but also dark shadows type effect. So yeah, there's lots of little dials to play around with. These are advanced settings for a reason. If you ever get lost sort of playing around with the advanced settings and it's like, oh gosh, my light looks like utter crap now, like how do I fix it? How did I make this abomination of lighting that is just completely horrible? There's a reset button that will set the light source back to its sort of normal appearance. So you can go nuts, and then if you get down an alley that you're not liking the way it looks, you can just reset it back to be a sort of normal light. All right, so that I think is my overview of adaptive lighting. I will one last thing here. Oh no, there's one I didn't show, and that is the Gradual Illumination checkbox. So under Advanced Options, Gradual Illumination. This allows you to have the difference between a light that has clearly differentiated edges between, dim and bright, versus a light that has sort of soft, gradual transition. So this is with the gradual off, and then this is with gradual on. So it's a gradual on is maybe like mechanically a little bit less clear. So if your game relies a lot on, say, knowing like, am I in bright light or am I in dim light? If you have gradual illumination on, it might be a little harder to answer that question, versus with it off, it's pretty clear cut, like which circumference of the light source your token is in. But it does look much more beautiful, and so supporting a gradual gradient of the light is really great.
Does that interact with this darkness penalty more or less, or at all?
It does interact to the degree that so like here I'll adjust the slider, and you can see how the light kind of dims as darkness gets, like the darkness starts to sort of encroach on the light a little bit more. So when darkness is at its minimum, it's very hard to see the difference between like bright or dim at all. It's kind of like there's no darkness, it's daylight. It's hard to tell the difference between like a bright light and a dim light in the middle of the day. Go outside with a flashlight if you don't believe me.
It's exactly what you'd expect.
But as darkness gets higher, then there is there's a more noticeable difference between the bright radius and the dim radius, and that is certainly easier to differentiate. You know, when you have gradual illumination off, it's much easier to see than if you have it on. But if you have it on, it produces a much more beautiful effect. So
it really does.
I see a couple people asking for the classic demo of blending, because that's one thing that the new system does really well. Here's a map that has like a little bit more open space to it, so I can use this one. I'll do a sort of classic like RGB I'll just set intensity at max for each of them so that people can see the blend that you get. It's really very beautiful. All of the colors of the spectrum. I will move these a little bit tighter in. You can see it starts to produce white right in the middle, which is very nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, the blending is really beautiful. Question about how luminosity interacts with full daylight. Yeah, great question. So here's a scene with zero darkness. If I start to crank the luminosity, I will get a light that is brighter than daylight. So I'll do it over here. So here's like a bright light at normal luminosity during the day. You can't really tell the difference between this and the rest of the scene. But if I crank the luminosity up, you'll get a light that is even brighter than daylight in this particular area, because it overexposes the underlying texture.
Yep.
Yeah, so great stuff with the blending, great stuff with the luminosity slider. I think those are going to be very popular. The purple circle is a feature that is not quite working yet. I probably am going to disable this button in prototype 1. This is going to be back in prototype 2 probably. The point of this is to display a delimiter circle that helps you see like what is bright versus what is dim. But there's some technical issues with the feature that we still need to hammer out. All right, so next up, I wanted to show, so that was the blending. We also have a couple of new animations. So I already showed some of the animations, but let me show a couple of new ones. So you know how the Chroma animation will kind of change the color of your light already, but it changes the whole light. So you kind of traverse the colors of the rainbow with a Chroma animation. But it does the whole light all at once. We have some very fun new lights that will give you multiple colors all at once. So for example, the swirling rainbow for a good sort of mesmerizing rainbow effect. Very beautiful. Good for your, hypnotic pattern spell or something.
Good spell.
Get another one in the rainbow theme is a radial rainbow, which is like the swirling one, except they emanate outwards from the origin instead of swirling. Another one is the fairy light. So this is kind of a hybrid between rainbow and the ghostly light, where you'll get kind of a shimmering pattern of rainbow light that sort of swirls around with a little bit of sort of a ghostly flicker. And maybe it's better if I reduce the intensity a little bit. Yeah, so it's really pretty. Nice for someone's like, show us the color burn. I don't know. I don't know that this is a good idea. This could go really badly, but we'll try some different coloration modes. So this is with the old legacy. This is adaptive, internal halo, color burn. Oh, not sure that's very nice, but it's interesting. There's some artistic merit to it, I suppose. Let me grab my token here. Yeah, it's interesting. There's something to it. I don't know. There's some merit to it. Internal color burn. Looks pretty interesting. Low absorption. That's cool. Low absorption will be really great for like the ripple of something on like the surface of water, or like different materials. This will play really nicely for. I really like the
luminous moss in caves.
Yeah. Luminous moss in caves will look really, really nice with low absorption. It's really like when the effect of the light is just playing on the surface without there being this kind of ambient light in the atmosphere as well. So like the reflection off of water, luminous moss in caves, things like that is really going to be very, very nice to play with in certain situations. Okay, animations. We also have two other new animations. I teased these last time. One is Bewitching Waves. It's kind of a wobbly, woozy sort of wave shape, and I'll play with the intensity a little bit. It's just a much less structured version of the pulsing wave, which is perfect circles. The bewitching wave is a little bit more hypnotic in that the shape is transformed of each of the sort of, all hail Hypnotoad indeed. And Vortex, which is a pretty cool, intense sort of swirling, vortex of stuff. It's pretty intense. I'll boost the darkness level so that it is kind of a little bit more visible, but pretty cool vortex light. Very, very fun to play with and see what kind of trouble you can get into with it. So those are the new animations. I think I just have one more thing to show on lighting, and that is, so for something like the dome, I mean, really any animation, doesn't really matter. You can now take the animation speed to 0 if you want it to just stand still. So the speed slider now goes to 0 instead of just down to 1. So you can kind of stop an animation if you like say you like the appearance of the vortex or the bewitching wave, but you're getting a little bit tired of being like hypnotized by it. You can just stop it from animating. So that's a nice little feature. The other thing is you can reverse the direction of every animation now. So this bewitching wave, it can go from something that pulses outwards to something that sort of sucks inwards to the origin point. And so being able to reverse the direction of the animation kind of gives you double the level of control over over the appearance of your light source animation. So like a sunburst that rotates one way, or you can change it and have it go the other direction. I think you probably get the idea at this point. But yeah, mostly does it emanate out from the point, or does it sort of suck in towards the point? yeah, so lots of tricks in the lighting system that you'll be able to play with in the upcoming update. I'm gonna decorate this courtyard with rainbow lights everywhere. So because why not? It is the most festive courtyard. All right, so that's the lighting system changes. There was just a ton that went into this, huge amount of work to support all of those different features. I'm really excited for for you all to experience this and to play with it, and to have the new beautiful lights. And not just beautiful lights, but accurate. I think the accuracy of the polygon, the improvements to the smoothness of rendering, it's really smooth. And so I think you're all going to really enjoy this, and I think it will make using ambient lighting in Foundry to be all the more enjoyable going forward. All right. Let's see. I think that about covers the canvas changes. There are some things that we improved that are outside of that, though. Let me just run through this a little bit. Oh, okay, so one thing that's interesting is we added a new performance improvement for culling. So this restricts objects from being included in the canvas rendering when they're outside of the scene viewport. So for example, these dragons, these tokens are being rendered in the background. And so the new culling, it runs every frame and it restricts which objects are within the viewport, the screen. So as I move the canvas like this, and then all of the dragons are off screen, we're now able to save some resources every frame by completely ignoring those objects. Now, it is a trade-off, because in exchange for saving the resources of not needing to do any work for those objects, we do have to incur the expense of verifying whether or not we need to do any work for those objects. So it's sort of a performance trade-off, but in general, the performance cost of computing the culling is less cost than the cost of rendering the object outside of the screen viewport. So we're going with the culling solution as a default, but it will be something that you'll be able to configure, I think, as part of a performance mode. And it's going to need some testing, but at least so far it hasn't given us any trouble. And so it is really nice to be able to ignore objects that can't possibly be rendered on screen. So that's a nice performance improvement. And yes, Lord Zeal, it does mean that technically, like, performance should get better as you zoom closer and less things are like on screen. Technically, your performance would improve a little bit as you do that. And if you zoom all the way out, maybe you'll have a little bit less performance. Oh, while I'm here, there's one thing about the lighting system I've just been dying to show. I think my favorite thing on this particular map is this like little beam of light that kind of just creeps through the edge of the doorway, and like as I move this thing, like, I don't know, when we were working on the new system and just like the accuracy of the polygon, like having this like tiny little beam of light that was like coming through the doorway, at first I was like testing this map and I was like, what is this bug? Like something's wrong here. There's like an artifact. And then I realized that it's not an artifact. It's like actually a real little beam of light just coming through like this narrowest gap. It was, I don't know, that's just like I get such a kick out of it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun to play with. It makes your maps just look really amazing, to add this kind of level of dynamism to them. All right, next up for Canvas, Also, in terms of performance, is we've moved to a new graphics backend. So when I say graphics, I mean drawing geometric shapes, rectangles, lines, circles, polygons. It's a new community contributed package. It's called Smooth Graphics. It's kind of in early development, but it's stable enough to rely on. It's really, really good. It allows us to draw graphics that do not have anti-aliasing, because the smoothness correction for the edges of the graphics is built into the renderer for those graphics objects. And what that has allowed us to do is really exciting, is we've turned off MSAA for the entire canvas. So there used to be a canvas-wide, multi-sampled anti-aliasing filter applied to the entire canvas, and that's pretty expensive from a GPU perspective. And so with the new smooth graphics, we don't need that screen-wide MSAA anymore. We only need AA in very specific places, but like a token sprite, like this token, doesn't need MSAA. We already have MIP mapping. Like, we don't need some other things for this token in order for it to look good when we zoom in or zoom out, or for the edges to look smooth. Like, there is already sort of anti-aliasing baked into the token. We don't need to anti-alias it. We do need AA for things like the border of the token or for the health bars. And so we're getting that through the new smooth graphics, and that means we save on the performance cost of anti-aliasing for the rest of the canvas. This is a pretty huge thing, and the way, like, the place that it really shows up, and I need to fix this sidebar so that I don't have to refresh anymore, but consider, for example, just a hex map. What many of you might have noticed in the past, let me make the hex grid like solid black, is that at a certain point you might zoom out far enough of the hex grid that like certain diagonals, like the lines of the hex that are not either straight up and down or vertical or horizontal, like the diagonal lines of the hex, if you zoom out, those would get they would disappear. Many of them would disappear because of anti-aliasing would like kill those pixels, especially if your grid was like maybe like not quite so different from the background color. And now you have perfect precision of the hex grid going from zoomed in all the way to zoomed out, and you still have all of those diagonals from the smooth graphics backend. It's really, really cool. The guy who's developing it, Ivan Popolyashev, sorry, probably butcher his last name, but he's a big developer of the Pixie community, and his work here is really impressive. And so this new smooth graphics approach has allowed us to capture those benefits and to get rid of the anti-aliasing.
I think Twitch stream compression is probably.
Oh well, Twitch will have to take it for granted. Yeah, that is a fair point. You'll see in person though, once you render it on your end, that the hex grid is really beautiful with the smooth graphics. Yes. So another couple things. Related to Canvas, we're almost there. The visibility of map notes within a scene that utilizes token vision. Like tokens, the map note will now be restricted by what the token can see. So for example, suppose we've got a note, just a note here, strange cat. I mean, it's not supposed to be thematically appropriate, but if I toggle my notes on, I'll be able to see the note only when I can see it as the token. So that is a change from the prior behavior. If, as the GM, of course, if you have no tokens selected, you'll be able to see all of the notes, but with a particular token selected, only the ones that are in that token's line of sight polygon will be available. So that's a little change.
Nice.
Another change that is a pretty big one that took a fair bit of work is that the the UI portion of the token interface, as well as the measured template interface. The UI portion, like the icon, the tooltip, stuff like this, is all now separated from out of the token layer, and it is rendered in a new interface layer over top of everything else. And so what happens as a result of this is, let me say, like, suppose I've got this dragon that's like half on, half off. And I'll make it to where its nameplate is always visible, and maybe its health bar is always visible. You'll be able to see from the perspective of Akra's token that the text, sorry, I guess this should be, oh, I don't have an actor. All right, well, I'll make this dragon a bandit so that I have an actor. Yeah, there you go. So you see that the health bar and the nameplate are now over top of everything else, decoupled from the token itself. Let me reset Fog of War so it's even more obvious.
It looks like we've got Ivan in chat.
Oh, you're kidding me. Wow. That's incredible. Ivan, I'm so sorry for mispronouncing your last name. But thank you for your work on Pixie. It's really amazing. Yeah, so now the nameplate and the health bar, you see, like, it would have previously been clipped by Fog of War. If the token itself is, like, not visible, then the whole thing's gone. But if the token is deemed visible, then you'll get the full nameplate. It won't be chopped off the way that it was before. So that was an important change. Makes things a lot better with regards to interface. The other thing that this improves with regards to interface is if you have, before the token nameplate was, underneath the, it was in the token container, which was underneath the deferred lighting. And so if you have like a very intense light source, you would have like your health bar and name would be like blue in this case. And now that those interface elements are separated out, they are not affected by the deferred lighting. They're kind of strictly a UI element on top of the deferred lighting. This was a little bit tricky because like it needs to all stay synchronized so that when you move the token, the nameplate and the bars should like stay exactly aligned with the token. And so we had to do a little bit of work to make sure that the transforms of those different elements would always stay like in sync. So that if, also with visibility, right? So if the token becomes hidden, well, I'm a GM, so I can still see it. But if the token is out of view, so it's like in the fog area, the token's not visible, the nameplate should also not be visible. So that all needed to stay in sync. And so that was a little bit of an extra bit of work. And same with, of course, with measured templates. So you might have had an issue before where like your measured template, your cone effect could be like near the edge of the screen, and it would have like clipped off the tooltip of the text. And so this doesn't happen anymore, where the text tooltip is now over top. Same with the, say, like the control icon is not getting clipped anymore. All right. Let's see here. We'll get to some questions from chat in a moment. I think, yes, so another little change, we improved the behavior for creating a masking texture for roof tiles. So let me show like a map that has a roof. So if there's any shadow, like any sort of partially transparent pixels built into the roof texture, so here's the roof of the cabin here. If there's any like shadow built into the roof, this will now kind of downweight or penalize those pixels when determining the masking region for the roof. So if you have like a roof tile that has like some drop shadow already on it, this will do a better job of not treating the drop shadow as part of the actual roof region. So it's a little smarter. Assuming that the drop shadow is adequately low alpha, there's a certain threshold where if pixels that are below a certain alpha are like treated as not part of the sort of material construct of the roof. We're experimenting with that, might still need a little bit of tweaking, but it seems to be working pretty well. Like here's an example of roofs in action on this map. I'll just kind of go up the walkway here, and you can see like as I move under the roof region, yeah, I think there's a bug with I was just working on this bug actually before the stream and didn't quite fix it in time. There's a bug right now with door control icons. So in the presence of the roof, there should obviously be like a door control icon here that I would use to, to go into the cabin, and those door icons are not currently working with roofs. That's on my bug list to fix before releasing this, but yeah, that was a kind of a new thing that came up. But anyways, improvement in how we create the roof masking texture to understand if you're underneath it or not. Same as like moving underneath these trees. Handling that is like also part of what we're talking about with that. All right, I think that does it for all of the major new features. It's already like pretty feature rich. Like there's like a lot, as I hope you would all agree, going on in V9 P1. In addition to that, there's a bunch of like little API improvements or some bug fixes, although we're not really focused on fixing bugs with this update. We're focused on making new bugs. So
that's right. That was in the meeting.
Yes, the goal is to make new bugs, not to fix. No fixing. Only we've got to keep that quota up.
Yep.
All right, so let's see. All right, I do want to comment a little bit on some of the API changes and breaking changes for developers in the audience, but I think this is a good time to take our break. So I think what I'll propose is let's take a 5-minute break, and that'll give us a chance to use the restroom, get something to drink, and when we come back, I will do our license key giveaway. And once we do, after the giveaway, I'll talk a little bit about some of the little API changes. There's not a lot, but I'll talk about that a little bit, and then we will do Q&A from the audience. So if you want to be eligible for the giveaway, all you'll need to do is be logged in to Twitch. So if you're logged in while you're watching this, you'll be in the audience list, and I will grab your name. And yeah, and I'll put you in the roll table for the giveaway for license keys right now. So keep Twitch chat open, and I will be drawing some names on the far side of the break. So don't go anywhere, stick with us, and we will see you all on the far side to take some questions from you all that you have for either Kim or myself. We'll do Q&A for the second part of the show. All right, folks, I'll be back in just a few minutes.
You. Yeah. I didn't. It seemed very rehearsed.
Hello, we are back. Hope you all stuck with us. Sorry about the mic snafu, although nothing happened, so it was very boring.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm excited to do a giveaway. There's many of you watching, and we got 464 of you in the roll table for the giveaway, which is great. So I wish you all luck. I'm gonna do, I'll do 2. Well, we'll see. We'll do 2, and then I'll see how I'm feeling, depending on how long it takes. Wish you all luck with the giveaway, and tap in on your bennies, your hero points, your inspiration, and hopefully the old D464 is going to treat you kindly. So, Kim, if I can get your help with a little drum roll, please. I'm gonna go ahead and give it a spin. Yeah, probably not. All right, well, here we go. Oh, here we go. Hedebasen, number 142. Hedebasen. Congratulations.
Congrats.
I hope you are interested in winning a Foundry Virtual Tabletop Software license. Let's see if we can get a second winner while we're at it. Away we go. Ooh, that was pretty quick. Kako Suosa, number 64. If either of you are here, then you are the winners of our giveaway. If you are a winner... Yeah, you'll need to say something in chat. Hedebasen says thanks. That sounds like an I accept. Congratulations. We'll see if Kako Suosa is here and accepts the winning. Otherwise, I will roll again. I accept.
Oh,
accept from Kako Suosa. Congratulations to both of you.
That's gonna be the fastest.
That went pretty quickly. So let's go ahead and do one more spin on the old wheel. I'll do one more. We'll do a third license and see if we can get another giveaway. Since that was a little too fast to be satisfying. We got to build it up a little bit more. All right, we'll do another spin of the wheel. Drum roll, please. Oh my gosh, it's like the first one. Congratulations, awesome grant, number 38. You won right away. I didn't even make it past 38 people. Awesome grant. Congratulations. I should really make it at least go all the way around once. I think the limit for that is 100 entries right now, where if you have less than 100 entries, it will like go around multiple times. But if you have more than 100, it just goes straight to the result. Awesome grant. If you are here, you are the winner of a Foundry. Oh my gosh! Thank you, Secret Fire. Whoa! Awesome tier 1 subs. Thank you. Awesome grant. Let's see if we have another winner.
Already done so much, Secret.
Yeah, he's already done so much.
I don't see.
I'm not seeing an accept from Awesome Grant, so it looks like we are about to re-roll. I'm going to give another, 5 seconds.
Relegated to just Grant.
Just Grant.
Sorry.
All right, I'm rolling again. Everyone, good luck. Here we go. Oh, yes, we made it all the way down to the end. Viriato 139. Congratulations, Viriato. If you are here, you are the winner of a Foundry Virtual Tabletop Software license.
I see some V's, but not.
Yeah,
all
the other V names.
Yeah.
This was my chance.
Oh, there it is.
Viriato 139. I see a comment. Do you accept, Viriato? Do you wish to accept this license, or do you pass? In which case I will roll again. I accept. All right. Congratulations to all 3 winners. I hope you enjoy the software. What you'll need to do is step 1, register a user account on the Foundry VTT website. Step 2, send me a message on Twitch, just DM me with your username that you registered, and I will issue a license to your account. All right, that takes care of our giveaway. So let's talk about a little bit of like nerdy dev features real quick, and then we will do Q&A for the rest of the time. I don't think this is going to take long because the changes here are not super significant. I'm not going to go into like the literal wording of every change. What I am going to do is instead focus on the intuition of what changed, so that devs can have a sense of whether or not they are likely to be impacted by the changes in V9 Prototype 1 or not. Okay, so there are some changes to the way that textures are being loaded. So in the background, there is a loader. Like if I preload a scene like this one, well, I don't know. I guess I already had it loaded, so it's very fast. Let me do a scene that I haven't been using so far. Well, I guess I put it navigation, preload. Well, that was pretty quick too. Whatever. Computer too fast. Anyways, so when I loaded the textures for this scene, the texture loader that pulled in all the tiles, the background texture tokens, anything that's on the scene, it will, the way that resource loading is happening is now changed a little bit. So if you were using the texture loader directly, you may need to make an API change. If you were simply using the provided helper methods like load texture or get texture, that probably most of you are using if you're doing any texture loading, you'll be fine. Those APIs are unchanged, but if you're using the underlying loader itself, you may need to make an adjustment. Next thing, if you are using the Polygon computation methods, so if you were previously, for any reason, needing to compute the bounds of a polygon, so, I already showed this a lot, but I'll just show again, like the radial sweep polygon. If you were doing anything like this to create like an unrestricted LOS polygon, or if you were doing something, like density, if you were doing something like this to compute like a restricted field of vision polygon, anything like that in your modules, you're going to want to make a code change to use the new Polygon backend. So that's that's what you'll need to do. If you're creating polygons for your own use cases in modules, you're going to want to make a change as part of this. So that you would be affected in that case. Let's see here. Next up, where did I put my notes? The canvas layers have been reordered a little bit. So it's no longer a configuration where the parent stage goes directly into like the 11 layers as children. So let me zoom in my dev tools a bit. So these canvas layers, it used to be that these were all direct children of the canvas stage. Now the canvas stage has only a couple of children. In particular, it has these canvas groups as children, so it's hierarchical now, in that it's not just the stage straight into the layers, it's the stage straight into a couple of containers for like the primary canvas group, which is like the background, the tokens, the tiles, the effects canvas group, which includes lighting, site, weather, stuff like that, the interface canvas group, which contains the overhead, like HUD, nameplates, stuff like that. So there is now a hierarchical structure where layers belong to groups and the groups belong to the canvas itself. So if you're creating new canvas layers, or if you're adding new children into the canvas at like a high level, then you probably will be impacted by these changes, and you'll need to make sure that you're putting your stuff in the right place. That's the reorganization, the rendering of interface elements. So this is another thing. So as I already showcased how, the tokens are now rendering their like nameplates and health bars to the interface layer rather than to the token layer itself. This is something that you may wish to do yourself if you're creating canvas elements that have like a HUD, where if you have labeling or sort of heads-up interface around your module that creates canvas elements, you may want to put that interface stuff in the interface layer so that it's like over top of, you know, Fog of War, for example, rather than being, you know, stuck underneath it. Oops. So yeah, so if like my token is sort of half. So like here, the bar, the nameplate is over top of the Fog of War. You may want to do the same thing in your modules.
There any API methods for sort of pinning these interface elements to?
Yeah, it's a good question. There may be. I think, you know, what we've done is, I'll see if I can show this on the screen. And I think so, you know, as I mentioned the phases before, we're currently in the prototype phase. Next will be up like API testing and stabilization. So collecting feedback on the APIs and figuring out if we want to make it better for you know, users is, I think, a key consideration during the next phases of testing. But there is let me see if I can remember where this is defined. Yes, okay, so there is a new subclass of container called Object HUD, which is designed to synchronize with a placeable object or some other object. So what you might have is you would have like you'd have a container that's at a lower level, like it's a tile or it's a token or it's a template, and then you can give it an object HUD, which will handle the synchronization of its visibility and transforms. So like in the token class, what that looks like is we draw a HUD for the token, and we just create an instance of the object HUD that references the token, and it will handle all of the synchronization for you. So yes, there are some APIs in place that you can use that same paradigm for your own stuff, where you want to have like one object that's sort of tangible within the scene, like it's a person or it's a tile or it's, you know, something that's within the primary group, it's affected by lighting, stuff like that, while still having some interface that's linked to that object in the overhead layer. I see a question about synchronized transforms. That is in there, yeah. So it's pretty lightweight. It's just a specialized subclass of the regular transform that maintains the transform with relation to its linked object. So yeah, the object HUD and the synchronized transform is just it's exposed. So yeah, we'll continue working on the APIs, but it's pretty simple. I think just using the object HUD is what you'll want to do in most cases. Let me change up the music. I'm really enjoying this music from Ivan Dutch. Let's try the traveling. That sounds fun. We'll use his looping road trip. All right, next up, obviously from all of the lighting changes, I think you need to be aware of changes to the shaders. So if you're making custom lighting shaders, you will need to be prepared for some changes, I think, in order for your stuff to work properly. So I think that only affects a small number of people, but if you are in that small number of people who are making custom lighting shaders, you'll want to take note of some new things that probably require your attention. Sorry, I'm just getting distracted playing with lights again. It's so easy to get sucked into just like wanting to make things look pretty. It's one of the nice advantages of the new lighting system. It just kind of, it's fun to play with. All right. What else we got? The weather layer. I renamed it because I was being picky. There is going to be a backwards compatibility shim for this if you keep referencing the old effects layer, but effects layer was a little bit too generic, and really we're only specifically using it for weather, and so I just decided to rename it to the weather layer to be a little bit more explicit about what's going on there. You might be adding other effects in other places, and so it's felt a little bit... Part of it was because, as I mentioned, we've got these new groups, and the primary group is called the effects group, and within the effects group we have the walls layer, lighting layer, site layer, and weather layer, and so part of the renaming was to disambiguate that. Really, that's pretty much it. In terms of API changes. So like if you're rendering stuff on the canvas, basically, this is an update that you'll want to probably think a little bit about. Other than that, there's not really API changes for anything like system development or other sort of general purpose module development. There is one thing that affects that. Kim, you worked on this, so you can maybe comment on it a little bit. Previously, we have combatants, the participants in a combat encounter, where the combatants were previously referencing tokens in a scene in the canvas rather than token documents, which kind of exist at a global level. And so we tidied that up so that to make it better for combats to work in the absence of the canvas, combatants now reference token documents instead of token objects. Kim, I don't know if you want to say anything more about that.
Yeah, combats should now be, you could previously set the scene to null and have them kind of detached from a scene, and I've just tidied up some of the edges around that, so that should work more neatly now. There shouldn't be as many issues if you want to totally detach a combat from a scene now.
Awesome. In terms of API improvements, there's really not too much to mention, so I think that pretty much covers it. Be happy to do Q&A with any developers in the community, either now or on Discord in the developer support channels, if you have any questions about these changes that are coming up. But bear in mind, please bear in mind, what is coming up is prototype 1 of version 9. There's a long way to go. We've got to do cards, we've got to do new testing. It's going to be a couple months still before version 9 is getting close to release. So please don't feel any pressure or panic that you need to start updating or adapting or anything, but we are going to be entering phases where your test feedback can be really valuable to us. So if you're interested in testing, then please do help with the testing process. Don't feel like there's an urgency or need to panic about getting up to speed on this right away.
If you have time and you are invested, then now is the time to start playing around and giving us feedback.
Well, later this week once we release P1, because it's not actually released yet. But yes.
Sorry, not now. Yeah.
All right, so let's turn it over to questions. I think we'll spend the next, let's say, hour of the stream taking questions from chat, and then we'll wrap it up. So please feel free to go ahead and start putting those questions in chat. Do me a favor and preface them with question in all caps so that I can easily grab the questions from chat. And Kim, we can kind of alternate asking each other questions. And I'll just get started with Cage's question about do the new lighting changes work with animated backgrounds? Yes, absolutely. The animated background is underneath the it's within the texture that's the input to the deferred lighting, so animated stuff will work. I'm not sure I have, let me see if I have an animated background handy that I can showcase, and while I do that, maybe Kim, why don't you pick out a next question?
All right. How smart is Kim? Yeah, I'll take that one. I have a degree.
I has brain.
But yeah. See, a lot of these are canvas-based. I can probably answer them.
Well, you can feel free to just read them out, and
I'll read them to you. Yeah. Is there a chance to get? Oh wait, there's one that's uncapped. 0.8 leftovers milestone. Are they still planned soon? Good question. I don't know if there's a lot of fixes already in 0.8, 0.9. I suppose V9, V8 now. I don't know when we plan to release that.
Yeah, that's a milestone of things that we kind of wanted to do, but for whatever reason it ended up falling out of scope a little bit. I do think that we will still try and do some of those things, but the timeline is a little bit harder to predict. A lot of them, to be honest, are now kind of a little bit too big for V8. Like we have V8 in a stable place. We don't want to rock the boat by making changes that could make it less stable. So like no new features can go into V8. Really, we just are focused on stability and bug fixes. So there won't be a V8 release with that stuff. But it is things that we'd like to pull into V9 because it was related to things we did in V8 and they're kind of leftovers as it says. But we also need to hit our primary commitments on V9 as well. So it is like just a tough prioritization question, and I think if we end up with any excess bandwidth to take on extra issues, that V8 leftovers milestone is where we're drawing them from.
Yeah, that's always the challenge, just prioritization.
One other thing. Oh, go ahead, Kim.
I was just going to read another question for you.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Is there a chance to get other shaped lights? Oh, I saw this asked a while ago as well. Such as squares, triangles, or custom polygons.
Yeah, I think on this one, not yet, but definitely there is a vision in the future of supporting non-radial light sources, where they're instead region-based light sources, where you would draw a region of effect. Getting radial sources working, I mean, radial sources are kind of like the idealistic light source, and so getting those working as well as possible is sort of the top priority. But I think that yes, there is a goal in the future that you would be able to draw a certain region. And then have a certain, like have that be illumination and maybe have an animation for it, things like that. So those are all things that we would like to do in the future.
Yeah, okay. Do the improvements regarding the interface layer and clipping of text also apply to text from map nodes? Is that like when you hover over a map node?
Yes, it should. It actually didn't need special treatment in that case because map notes are already in the in a higher up group of stuff. So, for example, like the map note is already like over top of where the fog is. But yes, it's the same thing. It's in the interface above the rest. There is one little feature I want to showcase, not to derail the question train, but I forgot to talk about it before the break. One other feature that we did was there was this aspect of the animated map reminded me. There's a thing in V8 and all previous versions where if you have a video like animated token or animated tile and you have multiple copies of that same one, their animations were previously like perfectly synchronized. And I have managed to break that at the expense of some performance. And so now you'll notice that, for example, like these 4 tokens are all doing the same animation, but not in exact unison, not in perfect synchronization. I probably need to make this more of a performance option because it does end up resulting in you needing to load and maintain multiple copies of the same video file in order to have separate playback. Yeah, this was something that I'd wanted to at least give the option of having sort of unlinked animated tokens from the same base texture.
Yep, very cool. I do remember that flying by in some of the dev support channels a while ago. Wow, there's a lot of questions. There's some complicated ones. There's one I can take, which was seeing that deep clone now as a strict mode. Does it still support the same things? It hasn't really changed in its implementation. It's just that now if it's strict, it will throw an error if you give it something that it can't clone. It doesn't know how to clone. It will give you an error, so you don't accidentally end up with a reference to the same object. And then there was will the new canvas lighting system allow for pseudo normal map creation based on the BG, the background image, for added depth and shadows? So some graphics related.
So I think the stuff that we're doing with the canvas is really cool. It's very exciting, but it is definitely all geared with the idea in mind that Foundry is using maps that have been created rather than being a map creation toolkit itself. So things like putting together a map in Foundry and, adding drop shadow to different elements and, making the map, compositing the map image in Foundry, there are tools for doing it with tiles, but they are not as developed as what you'll have with many other programs. And that's intentional because we need to kind of choose our own scope and have a clear vision of what we're doing and what we're not doing.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I might have misread that one out with my emphasis. I think it might like normal maps. Like in the graphic sense. Like 3D graphics.
I see.
Yeah, that was my bad.
Okay. The system doesn't really work that way. It would be interesting if it could, but I think a limitation of Foundry in this regard is that in order to understand things like depth, you have to have a lot of data, a lot of metadata about the image that's being displayed, because we're using like a two-dimensional image here that Foundry itself wasn't responsible for. Foundry didn't create it. And so the idea that this bridge is like higher than the water beneath it, and then we would be able to know that in order to incorporate those like height mapping or depth mapping into the lighting algorithm, we don't really have the underlying data about like the image that someone is using, because you can just pull in an image like this and maybe machine learning, maybe someday, with image processing would kind of be able to tell that some of these are elevated and that there should be drop shadow and stuff like that. But it's not really something that is in scope or feasible for us to have worked on at this point.
That's fair. Yeah. Another question here: is there a way for players to add custom presets to light and vision drop-down menu? I feel like that could be pretty good mod fodder.
Yeah, so it is extensible to a degree. There isn't the vision modes drop-down yet, but there are for the lighting configuration. It is extensible. In fact, under the config object under canvas, the light animations are defined in this sort of modular way that additional animations can be added by adding the definition and a reference to the shaders that they use, as well as the coloration. let's see, I'm trying to refresh my memory of where these are defined, because they're also exposed, but I think it's maybe a slightly different place. Why don't you pick another question while I track the answer to this one down?
Sure. And I think if you wanted to have like presets on your character, like, I don't know, say you've set up a bunch of lighting configuration for moonlight on your light, and then you wanted to quickly switch it to daylight, some light, then a module could do that. I think that would be a UI thing and some data.
It would be cool to have some presets. I know that, like, I find myself, obviously, like, a torch, like, is something you find yourself needing often, and you usually want your torches to be, like, all configured the same way. I think there are some modules already that offer that functionality, but that would be something nice to build into core at some point.
Okay, yeah. Walls blocking light but not vision, still planned.
Oh, I didn't talk about it. We did it.
Does that not exist? Yeah.
We did it. Yes, we did it. Hey, we did a thing. So, let me just, like, put some walls on this guy. I knew I was, like, leaving out some features. We got to reorganize the patch notes to think about, like, prioritizing kind of the bigger impact stuff. But yeah, it's separated out now with walls so that you have separate drop downs for sight restriction versus light restriction. So say I could allow sight to be limited for this rooftop, but light is not. So I have a light that is inside this area. It doesn't escape the region because it is constrained, but my sight, from the perspective of a token, does enter that region. So let me give some. Yeah, so I can see into or onto the rooftop, but the light isn't coming out of it. Or, you could be the other way around where you can't see into it, but the light is coming out. So suppose you said, well, this is like more like a gazebo roof, and there's a big pink light underneath the roof that should be spilling out from underneath the roof. Maybe you can do it the other way around or something. And there's lots of different ways you could you could make this work where the light's coming out, but your vision is blocked or something like that. So lots of different possibilities of how you would want to use this feature, but they are separate now. So you can configure sight limitation and light limitation separately. Usually they'll be the same, but there are always circumstances in which you would want to configure them differently.
Yeah, very awesome. That's a very nice one. Any thought about setting or default mode where actors, both players, actors, and DM creatures by default get created into a system-dependent compendium instead of tied to a world? System-dependent compendium.
Well, your world data is system-dependent in that your world is linked to a certain system, and so I think. The question is really one of like where is that data end up being stored? Does the data end up being stored in the world, or does the data end up being stored, somewhere else? I think there are limitations of different models, but I think storing your world data physically with your world files in your world, I think it is an approach that I'm not unhappy with. So I think maybe what the asker of this question is thinking in their mind is that there's probably some problem that they're trying to solve that the current data model is maybe not so suitable for, and so it might be interesting to talk about like what is that actual problem, and what the way forward might be. But
right, like if you've got some game system and you're building out the monsters for it, you just want those automatically shared. I imagine that's a fairly common. Like if you create a new world in that system, you just
I think some recently added tools have made it a lot easier. Sorry, I hope we're back. Sorry about that, folks. Not sure what happened there, but I am quite certain that my internet cut out for about a good 2 seconds for some reason that I do not know. I do not like that at all. That is not happy. All right. Well, hopefully we didn't lose all of you. Let me go down to the bottom of the questions list, and we'll keep going for a bit.
Yeah, I had to refresh, so I have lost.
Yeah, we'll go to the current on questions, and then we'll people can just re-ask their stuff. Yeah. All right, let's get some more questions from folks, either for Kim or for myself, please. One question from Hopper: plan to have a global sound that can be affected by walls. Yeah, I want to add some more configuration for sounds. Currently there's kind of like local versus global, as well as the interaction between sounds and walls. But I think there can be still a little bit more nuance in the future.
Can we use the new light adjustments, contrast, saturation, etc. on the entire canvas to quickly give the map a new look?
Not yet, but as part of our vision modes that will be ongoing work now that we finished adaptive lighting, that will be the plan there, is that light source shaders are specifically how should this light look, and it is important to keep that scope defined. But the same shaders, the same techniques can be used for lots of things. And so the goal will be in the future, I don't have a timeline to tell you at this point, but this token that has like a vision angle, we could say like everything within their vision angle should appear a certain way, perhaps in a way that interacts with existing light sources, perhaps not. And so, things like applying modification techniques to the canvas itself, not just lights, is definitely on our upcoming agenda.
Yeah, all right. There's a question here about light sources that are not points, so that there can be penumbras. Penumbras.
Penumbras. What a great adjective. I think we already talked about this a little bit, with the goal to eventually define polygon-based light sources. No support for that yet, but coming at some point.
Walls that change / filter light color. That's a cool idea.
Sorry, clarify the...
It's that was the question. Walls that change / filter light color.
Oh.
Question mark.
Ooh, that's hard. No, I don't think I have any plans for that. That is a very, very difficult problem that you've just proposed. Limited walls, ones that allow some limited penetration of the vision or light, those are already quite complicated to work with in terms of the polygon computation, and so yeah, that's a tough one. I think I like the idea, but it's having just gone through this round of polygon improvements, that I think that gives me the chills a little bit to think about. So probably not.
Yeah, fair enough. Is there a multiplier for sight now?
Not yet. No. As part of our work on vision modes that I've alluded to a couple of times, this is something we might look at where, under certain lighting conditions, you can see farther, like your effective vision gets multiplied. I don't know exactly how that's going to end up working yet, so I don't want to promise. But I think the vision modes feature that I've kind of alluded to is the place that we would look into that and try and make that a reality if we can.
Yeah. Okay.
Let me see if I can.
Sure.
I want to find some questions that are good for you, Kim. I need some help from chat to give us some good Kim questions. Let's see. I think this one bears reiteration. James Logan asks, will there be any big changes in the new version that may lead to important updates to systems prepared for the 0.8 version? So we already talked about API changes for this first prototype, and they're, I think, relatively minimal as far as system impact is concerned. Although the next prototype, which deals with card support, is one that certainly is likely to impact some systems where the use of cards is a key part of their gameplay mechanics. Not in a way that should force changes right away, but certainly, like, I would hope that eventually systems that use cards would opt into using the card support version the framework for card support that we add with the second prototype. More on that next time we cover, our next dev stream.
Okay. Kim question. Will features from Obsidian make its way into the base system? That I wouldn't call them features from Obsidian. They're features that exist in the 5th edition game, so both the 5e system will converge on the same things ultimately, and there's been lots of stuff that like the spell stuff that I did in Obsidian. I kind of ported that over in the early days, so yeah, they both work on 5th edition rules, so they'll both end up with the same things, maybe implemented slightly differently.
Yeah, I think Kim's brought a lot of great ideas to the 5e development team already, and so I think we'll continue to benefit from his past experience and, well, I guess continued experience with Obsidian and finding the right balance there. I definitely expect that additional features that are will flow in that direction. Caligo asks about use of WebAssembly. It's a nice question. Specifically, the question is like, how open to utilizing it are we? I'll speak for myself. I mean, I'm certainly open. I think one of the reasons I haven't delved more deeply into implementing portions of Foundry in WebAssembly is still, I feel like the software is like evolving a fair bit, and I feel like I'm just more agile in JS than I am in JS that I would then port to, Rust, Go, whatever language you want to compile the WebAssembly from. I think like that's
x86 assembly.
Yeah, it's a great step to take for certain things that you feel like they're final and you want to just optimize them. And I think maybe it could be that our new Polygon logic. I have no explanation for why the stream went down that time, because my internet did not cut out. So yeah, sorry about that. I guess we're back.
Yeah.
Continued difficulties. Sorry, I don't know what happened there. That was not me. Well, I guess it was me, but Kim is cursed.
I'm cursed. Sorry.
Well, let's take a couple more questions, and hopefully we'll stay online for them to answer.
Yeah.
Kim question: what are you looking forward to in the future releases of D&D 5e?
Yeah, that is a good question. I think one of the ones that I saw up, I think Jeff wrote it up on the vision modes, is a very cool one. Like having like proper tremor sense and
Mm-hmm.
dark vision and things like that, which we are slowly working our way towards with all these new vision changes and things. That'll be nice to make use of in 5th edition, and will be really great, because like running Theater of the Mind and running some of the virtual tabletop, just running some encounters, like so many times it's been like, oh wait, this dragon has blind sight, or oh wait, this Ankeg has tremor sense, and he would actually know where you are, and it's just a pain to rewind, and having the virtual tabletop there and doing it all for you, and it'd just be really nice. That's a big one though. That's a tough one too.
Yeah, I think for sure that'll be really nice if and when we can get that done.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Let me read one. Try to scroll up, make sure I haven't missed any important questions. I don't know. Yeah, this one's been asked a couple of times. Any word about some sort of conditional visibility? Darkness that hides token, devil sight, see through. Oh wow, okay, we just talked about that.
It's so funny how we tend to retread a lot of the same ground because everyone has the same questions.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, and there are some modules that touch on some of these. I think I see Perfect Vision talked about a lot there. And what else? Yeah, I think some of them have been handled by chat. Some talk about a version 1.0, which is not a thing. Will you have everything? I mean, I've heard you talk about these things before, so you can maybe talk about it again. But how Foundry kind of will never really be done.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't want it to be like too much of a hill that I die on, or a statement or something. I don't really like the idea of version 1.0. I don't like what people think that means. I don't like what that means. I think it's sort of it's just too loaded. It's like I don't want to necessarily have a stream where we show up and say, all right, today is the day that Foundry is finished.
Yes.
Farewell. It's been nice. We now go to the Grey Havens.
Yeah, if only.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right. It's any semblance of being done would be so far in the future that it'd be impossible to commit to anyway.
Mm-hmm. Question from Modnor Wild about decks. How is the ownership for DOM? Does this mean like the web DOM, or does this mean, I don't know, it just says DOM going to work in deck building games or Clue, where stacks are separated, then gathered to make a new deck. It could in theory mingle, be returned when an event happens, or destroyed. Gosh, it sounds so complicated. It's going to be complicated. There's going to be a lot to figure out. I'm trying to get to the crux of the question, which I think is like, how is visibility and permission going to be handled? But that in itself is like quite a big thing. I think, and a lot of the scoping for this still remains to be done, because we haven't started working on P2 yet. We've just done some scoping, but more scoping is going to be needed. We know that some concepts are going to exist, though. We know that there's going to be a concept of a card which will be able to live in either a hand or a deck. where a hand may also be either in a person's possession, or it may be like a stack, a pile on the canvas. And the ownership and visibility of that will be configured at the hand level. So each player will have certain permission to certain stacks. Like if it's their own hand, then they'll have full permission to see what's in it, to discard, to draw, to reorder. If it's a pile on the table, maybe there's a different permission level where you can take more restricted set of actions, where you could draw from it, you could shuffle it, you could, I don't know, do some other manipulations, but you might not have the same level of visibility into what's in that stack as the one that's in your own hand. So I don't have a great answer for you yet, aside from saying, like, we're certainly thinking about these considerations in the way that we build the data structures that we're going to use. I think the underlying like card data structure combined with the concept of a stack or a pile, like those are ones that we're going to get a lot of mileage out of both of those concepts. And I think it will allow us to provide an API that strikes a nice balance between simple and usable, but also functional in terms of addressing the different cases that people need for different types of card games. Hopefully I'll have a much better answer for you on that when we actually are doing the P2 dev stream.
Yeah, as with all things Foundry, just laying a solid foundation is always the first step.
Yeah.
And more will come.
Question from Shark that walks like a man. Will V9 bundle a standard 52 card deck? I think maybe / probably. That seems like, like we have support for different denomination of die, different coin, like you can flip a coin, like that's built in. I feel like a basic card deck is probably something that will be accessible to use as like a built-in option. And then custom decks, you would be able to extend that by defining different decks.
It's remarkably articulate for a shark.
Yeah, shark that posts comments on Twitch like a man.
Like a man. Alright. There was a question about shared compendia. It's just hard, I think. Just because of the way that Foundry works, and having like at the core file system level, having multiple processes trying to access the same file can be a problem. So it's not an easy solution.
Yeah, I think that on that note, I think the solution that we have in terms of like it's best to have a module that you can share between multiple worlds is a good solution. But I think what is maybe a little bit unnecessarily daunting for some users, and I think this is a very fair critique, is the challenge of getting that set up. And so I think we should have in the future at some point, we should have a built-in in the UI, like I want to create a new shared module, and like the software can set that up for you rather than requiring, a lay user to know the secret sauce of like, oh, I need to just create like a very basic module manifest. Like that's not something that is a good thing for us to recommend for, most users to need to do. And so it is there is a problem there worth solving.
That makes sense. Well, there you go. Yeah, definitely. So something we can do better at and build in. More deck questions. But that was the one you covered. Do you plan any plans to provide additional tools for custom system creation, specifically for those who are not well versed in HTML and CSS?
I'm going to answer your question, but I want to first just brag on like how nice and soft the border is between the LOS mask and the light, we used to have this really sharp border where when we masked a light source, the edge of it got like super, very, very sharp. Now we have just like this very gentle, soft edge. I forgot to kind of showcase that last time, and I'm very happy with it.
It is very nice. Is that the shaders or is it the smooth graphics?
Neither. Well, kind of both. There's a little trick. Let me see if I can show a little trick here. I'm trying to think of the best way to showcase this. Maybe it's easier with a light to do. Basically what we do is we create a intermediate texture that's just in memory of the GPU. Let me give it a limited angle. So I need to get a reference to this guy so I can show what I want to show here. I'll show a little bit of our secret sauce. So for the light source, we compute the polygon and then we cache a texture. So that's, I just pasted it onto the canvas basically. So there's this texture up here, this blue with the green blurred edge. And basically we cache this texture in the GPU so that when we're rendering the shaders, we can rely on this to know what the affected region of the light source is. And this little blur of the green line that blurs the edge of the shader, we can ignore the green pixels when we're masking with the texture so that we can use a mask that gives us a soft edge of the light source. So it's a little trick of like kind of what's happening under the hood in terms of when it computes the polygon, it caches a texture for the masked shape, which can then be soft at the edges, which is really nice. Anyways, I lost track of the question that you were asking when I was thinking about that.
Any plans to provide additional tools for custom system creation, specifically for those who are not well versed in HTML and CSS?
I think it would be wrong for me to say that there are plans for that. I don't know, Kim, what you think. I mean, it's an idea that has a lot of merit, but it is also something that is not in our upcoming plans, so to speak, because there's a lot of things we have to do. I think making like a WYSIWYG system creator or something is probably outside of the scope of anything that we'll commit to in the near term. There are some nice modules that give this type of functionality, or systems that give this type of functionality themselves, but I think this is probably something that is not something that we will work on in the foreseeable future.
Yeah, that's where I would emphasize that this sort of functionality is possible to add with a module or a system. You can have a module that lets you build, or even an out of Foundry app that just lets you build a Foundry system. Maybe, I don't know how hard it would be to hook up the API, but you could do some of that work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it is possible already. Do you plan any improvements on compendium functionality? It is a bit of an open question. I can probably tell you, even without conferring, that the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Improvements, most things will come.
Yeah. I think one of the big things I want to support with compendium changes is supporting folders both for compendium packs in the sidebar as well as for content within a compendium pack. I think it would be really great to have more organization capability. It seems a little bit silly that we don't have more, but there is like an actual kind of awkward technical explanation for why there isn't like foldering support within the compendium, but yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely think that that's something that we'll want to figure out a way to break down that obstacle.
Yeah. I don't have much to add to that.
Let me see what we got here. I think we're starting to run dry on questions, which is great because it means we've hopefully answered what people are interested in. Thank you, Alostin, for joining us and for hanging out. I appreciate you saying that. All right, folks. Well, we can start wrapping up. Anyone have more questions? Anything they'd like to see? Anything they'd like for me to demo? I think I've somehow frozen my Foundry view here. I don't know why or how. I'll have to go look into that. Let me try and switch it to... My rainbows over here are just fine. I don't know what was happening there. Time to make a third note of the stream. Third note of the stream.
All right. I got some more questions about the future card update. Will it be possible via API for adding text to cards to model writing onto index cards used by some RPGs? And would checkboxes be possible? I don't know if we know at this stage, like, what does a card look like when you click on it? Is it like an application instance that kind of has stuff on it?
Yeah, good question. I mean, one of the big philosophical divides that we're going to have to make a stand on as we develop Prototype 2 is when we render a card, are we rendering it in the HTML DOM or are we rendering it on the canvas? I think there's pros and cons of each of those, and I think that's a big sort of philosophical split of like what we focus our attention on. Rendering onto the canvas can allow for some more beautiful cards, but they also end up requiring the canvas to be present, and it ends up linking your use of cards to like which scene you're looking at the time. So the other option of like rendering cards in the DOM and just using more of a pure HTML approach is something that would accommodate a lot more use cases, but not necessarily be as fundamentally beautiful. So I think that we need to make a decision there, and it's one that we've been thinking about. And probably for V9P2, both is not a possible option, and so I think we do need to choose. And I think probably the likely result of that is that cards are likely to start, in my mind, they're likely to start in the HTML DOM. Maybe in the HUD layer, which is locationally linked to the canvas, possibly. But I could see myself changing my mind on that depending on a couple of things. But, it's hard to say. There's use cases for both, absolutely. And so, like, no choice we make here is going to be the right choice for everyone. And so I think, like, we're just going to have to try and make a principled choice about where's the right starting place for the, like, baseline card functionality to provide.
Yeah, and crucially, it's a starting place. More things can come later if it doesn't. Yeah. There's one that I can probably take this consideration to having package update log when updating all modules show before updating the modules. This was something that I think was flagged fairly early. We made the change for reasons, but it's absolutely reasonable to want to see what's being updated and then confirm that too, and that's something we can address.
Revelo Waldo reminds us that we were maybe going to talk a little bit about the latest 5e system release before we wrap up. I'm curious.
Wow, okay.
Well, we don't. So we're not going to get into the details of it. I already showcased some of the armor class features, and I think that's kind of the big stuff. But just at a high level, Kim, do you have anything you want to comment on about the latest 5e release? Anything that stood out to you, or anything that's like your favorite little feature, or?
I don't know if this answers your question exactly, but what stood out to me most was how I was really happy and confident with how it worked before 1.4.0, and then as soon as it was released, I realized all the things that were wrong with it immediately. And that still
as you do. As you do.
And that's a new experience that I guess I'm going to have to get used to. But slightly more, like the tooltips, great work on those, I think. And Jeff did most of those. So give him a shout out for excellent tooltips. And I think you kind of mentioned that we might add tooltips to more things to show the breakdown. It's quite a useful UI feature.
Yeah, I think we should double down on that and do more of it.
Yeah. I mean, there's not much to say. Everyone knows how armor class works, and now it works automatically, and it's nice. And there's some and I expect that it should work mostly how people have come to expect, without too much friction there, hopefully. Oh, sorry, I think are you muted?
Oh, I muted myself, because the garage was opening. Let's take a last question or two, and then we can wrap up for the day. I see one that looks useful for Pix Waffle asks, will the code for desaturating light sources also make desaturated vision possible? Commented on this briefly before. That's definitely the goal. We're going to tackle this with vision modes and continue on in this direction. So stay tuned. Mr. Dasso asks, is the 5e rule set ever going to be as complete as the PF2e rule set? Probably not. Unlikely, I think.
Probably not, because the PF2e devs are kind of superhuman. But also, there's only so many rules. There's only so many rules in 5th edition. I feel like it must be possible to be complete at some point.
I mean, we're also limited, to just providing the SRD.
Yes. So there's even fewer rules that we have to implement. So, going towards infinity, I'm sure it will be complete, but there's just more rules in Pathfinder 2nd edition, and their SRD is a lot bigger. So I don't think compare.
Yeah, the new expanded proficiencies is very cool. A good comment from chat on that.
Yep. Again, another one of Jeff's, I think.
Let's see here.
Yep, Jeff been hard at work. He has a personal crusade with proficiencies.
Yeah, that's true.
Very important
that's
to
true.
him. But yeah, I mean, we I don't want to discount your work towards all of the reviewing and the tidying up and cleaning around.
No, it's been great to get contribution from the community, especially when it's thoughtfully done and responsive to feedback and implemented in a way that is consistent with a lot of the paradigms that the system's using, so that it can fit into the approach that we're taking, rather than being kind of something that's too disconnected or difficult to maintain because it's too different. I think we've really avoided that, and while still increasing the amount of contribution that we've accepted, which is great.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're probably about done. I'm going to keep an eye out for one or two last questions. Question from Mad Sumas, are there any plans to make items embeddable in items, or to allow active effects to be edited in actor sheets? So items in items is something that I continue to be fairly strongly of the opinion of we don't need hierarchical data structures in order to display data hierarchically. So you can have an actor that has 150 items, and those items are all flat in terms of they're just an array of items, but their metadata can very easily define whether it's linked list or some other very simple data structure for building a hierarchical visualization of that data. So you can have an item within an item within an item, and you don't need to have separate APIs to manage that. You just keep the data structure simple, and then when you're rendering, you can structure those items however you want. There are some limitations to it, but I think that's still the paradigm that I'm of the opinion of as being the right one for Foundry. Question from Zepho asks, you said that things were wrong with the D&D 1.3 release. How satisfied are you with the 5e system so far? It's not that things were wrong with it. It's just that there's the fear once you click publish. Once it's out there, it's always the typo you find after posting the. Like every time I post a Discord announcement, right? I post the announcement and I'm like, oh, there's a typo in that. It's like it's just almost inevitable. It's like the mistake you find after passing the point of no return is always the one that stings the most.
Yeah, I think I can put it much better than that. It was less that it was like bad. It was more that I thought I'd covered everything, and I hadn't even.
Yeah.
There are so many extra things and different ways that people use it that I'd missed, and yeah. But in terms of the 5e system right now, I think it's good. You can load up, you can play 5e. It will keep track of all of the things that you need to keep track of, and it will help you out in a lot of places as well. And if there's bits that you're missing, there are pretty good modules out there that you can grab, though I would say that none of them are necessary to just play 5e in a nice
matter of opinion, I guess, depending on who you ask.
No, I would say I don't think you need anything else. But
let's see, there was a second part of the question from Salea about embedded documents in. Okay, so I think this has to do with like making it easier to edit an item that has effects, like the shield spell has like shield effects, and this part is not yet supported. Yeah, I mean, it's still a to-do. It's still something that we do need to address at some stage, for sure. I don't have a plan for it yet, though. All right, last question. Do you want to choose it, or shall I, Kim?
No, you go ahead. I might type some stuff in chat.
All right. Let's see. Last one. Let's get a good one. I'm just waiting. Lord Zeal, you know you don't have to ask that. Of course I love you. Well, I'm not really seeing much, so I guess we can just end it there. I guess that's good. Hopefully we answered things that people were interested to know about, and we did a good enough job of that.
Yeah.
Yep. I think it's fair. I think it's fair to stop there. I'll take one last question from Optical Shadows. It's a little bit of a, I don't know, I don't want to sour the end of the stream, but with the Foundry team getting larger, will the pricing model ever change? Yeah, so I'm planning to deactivate everyone's license and then ransomware it back to you for no. Gosh, I really shouldn't make jokes.
That's gonna get clipped.
Yeah, that's gonna get clipped. I'm in trouble. I don't know if the pricing model will. I mean, it certainly won't change for anyone who's ever bought the software before. I mean, we might change the price at some point. Like it might be that the price of the software changes from $50 to something else. I don't have any plans on that at the moment. I think that the price is still a good one, and I think the feature set is one that I'm really proud of, and there's still a lot of people that don't own Foundry yet, so I think there's plenty of customers for us to still acquire, and so the business opportunity remains good, and I don't think there's a plan that I have to change that. I think, in the future, if the well starts to get a little bit dry in terms of like things to continue doing for the main software, yeah, like that's a joke. But hypothetically, there's lots of things that we can do to continue making interesting business opportunities. We can work with publishers to do like first party content. We can, help work with hosting providers to provide better services there. There's all kinds of things that we can do around the software that are years out at this point. They're not things that we need to worry about right now. I mean, our focus for the time being is just completely on let's just continue making Foundry VTT, the software itself, as good as possible, and I think that's an exciting vision and mission, and there's still so much work to do that we're just lucky to have that clarity. I think that this is just what we do. We just make this software better, and it keeps things simple.
Yep.
All right, well, hopefully I hope today's stream was fun and enjoyable for all of you, and thank you all so much for joining and for your support. Just your kindness, your attention to what we're doing. It's really flattering to us to have so many of you care about what we're working on. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for the moral support, the kind words, your word of mouth in Discord and Reddit and Twitter, and thank you all so much for sharing the good word of what we're doing, and just helping to share that. And I really can't wait for all the exciting new changes that we've shown today to get into your hands and to start getting some feedback from you all directly on that. But until then, keep up to date with things on Discord, and we'll be posting announcements in the coming days about the first prototype and what comes next.
Thank you.
Any closing comments from you, Ken, today?
No, just to reiterate, thank you all so much for your support.
Awesome. All right, well, cheers, everyone. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you for sticking with us. Take care, and we will see you all next time. Until then, farewell.
Take care, all.